Hey guys, Fletch Football Observer here, and today's video is going to be another Premier League preview show previewing Game 2 of the new season. A number of interesting and exciting fixtures lie ahead in this next round of fixtures, and here I'm going to be previewing and giving my predictions on all them games. So without further ado, let's get into this. We're going to begin with arguably the game of the round, and it takes place at the Etihad Stadium as Manchester City entertain Tottenham Hotspurs in a Saturday's evening fixture. Last weekend, City kicked off their title defence with an emphatic 5-0 victory over West Ham, in which Raheem Sterling scored a hat-trick, whilst Tottenham came from a goal down to beat Aston Villa 3-1, with striker Harry Kane scoring twice to secure the points. Which side will come out on top here? This fixture sets itself up to be an open and entertaining game, especially if their encounter these two teams had in the Champions League last season is anything to go by. If Spurs want to take anything from this game, they're going to need to be alert and clinical. Having said that, I still see City winning this game, but I think, or I'm rather hoping, that there will be plenty of goals in this one. I'm going to predict a 3-2 City victory, Sterling to score yet again for City, whilst I think that Moura and Kane will score for the away side. The Saints meet the Reds in our next game on this list as Southampton host Liverpool at St Mary's. Liverpool were victorious against Norwich in their opening game of the season, beating the Canaries by 4-1, and since then they've gone on to play in the Super Cup final in Istanbul. Now I should point out that this video is being created before the game, so the result is unknown to me at the time of recording. As for Southampton, they lost 3-0 to Burnley. So the question is, will Southampton stun Liverpool by beating them, or will Liverpool make it 2 wins from 2 games? I think that regardless of the midweek game, Liverpool were used to playing midweek games last year with their Champions League run. The Reds weren't watertight defensively last week against Norwich, and so maybe there's something there that the Saints can try and exploit, but then again, Southampton have a number of defensive issues of their own. I'm going to play safe and say that Liverpool will win this game. Their quality and attack will be too much for Southampton to handle, and I'm going to say that the Reds will round out 3-1 winners, with Mohamed Salah again getting on the score sheet. For our next game, we turn to Molineux as that stadium plays host to Wolves versus Manchester United in Monday evening's game. Last weekend, Wolves were involved in a goalless stalemate with Leicester, whilst Manchester United were 4-0 winners against Chelsea to kick off their new season in the best possible way. Will United make it 2 wins from 2 games, or will Wolves stun United and take all 3 points for themselves? Wolves proved to be a tough nut to crack for United last season, and I'm sure that this season they will be the same again, not just for United but for most teams. United were clinical on the counter-attack last week against Chelsea, but Wolves like to play the same way when they face the bigger teams in the league, so this one will be an interesting tactical battle to say the least. I think this game will finish 2-2 come the final whistle, with Marcus Rashford getting on the score sheet for United and Raul Jimenez scoring for the home side. For our next game, we turn to Molineux as that stadium plays host to Wolves versus Manchester United in Monday evening's game. Last weekend, Wolves were involved in a goalless stalemate with Leicester, whilst Manchester United were 4-0 winners against Chelsea to kick off their new season in the best possible way. Will United make it 2 wins from 2 games, or will Wolves stun United and take all 3 points for themselves? Wolves proved to be a tough nut to crack for United last season, and I'm sure that this season they will be the same again, not just for United but for most teams. United were clinical on the counter-attack last week against Chelsea, but Wolves like to play the same way when they face the bigger teams in the league, so this one will be an interesting tactical battle to say the least. I think this game will finish 2-2 come the final whistle, with Marcus Rashford getting on the score sheet for United and Raul Jimenez scoring for the home side. Our next game is the Saturday lunchtime game between Arsenal and Burnley at the Emirates Stadium. Last weekend, both sides began their new season with respected wins, with Arsenal beating Newcastle by 1-0, whilst Burnley were 3-0 winners against Southampton. Will either side make it back-to-back wins here? My prediction for this game is that Arsenal will win, but it will be tough. We all know that Burnley can use their height and physicality to their advantage, and they can really unnerve and threaten the Gunners here. But I think that with Arsenal's quality in attack, it will be enough to be victorious here. And so with that being said, I'm going to predict a 3-1 Arsenal victory with Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang to score again for the Gunners. For our next game, Premier League new boys Aston Villa host their first game since being back in the top flight division when they entertained Bournemouth at Villa Park. Villa's return to the Premier League didn't quite go to plan for them last weekend as Tottenham fought back from a goal down to beat them, whilst their opponents Bournemouth suffered a late equalising goal by fellow new boys Sheffield United and in the end had to settle for a point against the Blades. Will Villa bounce back from last week's defeat, or will Bournemouth kick on and pick up their first win of the season here? As I don't know about you, but I'm looking for a really open game here. Villa's shown flashes of what they can do against Spurs last week, but they just faded towards the end of the game. Will the same thing happen here? My prediction for this game is a Bournemouth win. I'm going to give the slight edge to the Cherries here based on them having a little bit of quality and energy that I think will prove too much for Villa. Although any result in this game wouldn't be a surprise to me at all. I'm going to say 2-1 Bournemouth, Callum Wilson to get on the score sheet. It's down to the seaside for our next game as Brighton's new era under Graham Potter continues, with his first game at the Amex Stadium being against West Ham on Saturday afternoon. The Seagulls slightly surprisingly ran riot last Saturday in their game against Watford, where they won 3-0, whilst their opponents West Ham were on the wrong side of a 5-0 scoreline by their opponents Manchester City. Will Brighton make it 2 wins from 2 games, or will West Ham bounce back from last week's hammering, if you'll pardon the pun? Brighton stunned me last week, and from the looks of it, stunned others too with their victory over Watford. As for West Ham, they were decent in their build-up play against City, but were toothless in attack and ultimately got torn apart by a brutal City attack. But this is different. This is a different game, and therefore I'm going to make the prediction that this will end 1-1 and both sides will be forced to share the spoils. Next on the list, we come to Everton versus Watford at Goodison Park. 2 potential rivals for Europa League places this season go head to head. Everton were involved in a dull goalless draw last weekend against Crystal Palace, whilst Watford were defeated by Brighton 3-0 last Saturday. Which side is going to get the 3 points here? For this game, Watford will be wanting to bounce back, whilst Everton will be wanting to give their fans something to cheer about in their first home game of the season, to ignite hope that they can break into the top 6 for this coming campaign. For this game though, I think last week's defeat will be the wake-up call Watford desperately needed, but in saying that, with the opposition being Everton, I'm going to say that the final score for this game will be 2-2 come the final whistle. In our penultimate game on this list, Premier League new boys Norwich are in action as they host their first game back in England's top tier division when they host Newcastle at Carrow Road. Both sides lost on their opening day of the new season, with the Canaries losing to Liverpool by 4-1 and Newcastle losing to Arsenal by a single goal to nil. Which side will bounce back with a victory here? Big game for both sides here, a chance for both sides to put last week's disappointment behind them and properly begin the new season from here. Norwich can take some positives from their loss to Liverpool as they managed to get beyond the Reds' back line on multiple occasions, and with some more composed finishing, they could have really scored more. As for Newcastle, they didn't really test Arsenal last week, and I fear that this will be a recurring theme this season. Having said that, with the way that Norwich seems to be set up on playing from the back to front and being open and attacking, I'm going to predict that Norwich will actually win here. I wouldn't be surprised whatever the result to be honest, but I'm predicting a Norwich win, 2-1 to the Canaries, with Teemu Pukki again amongst the goals. And in our final game on this list, it's Crystal Palace, who are the first Premier League team this season to experience Bramall Lane as a visiting side when they meet the Premier League new boys Sunday afternoon. The Blades snatched a late point from Bournemouth last weekend thanks to a club legend in Billy Sharp grabbing the equaliser, whilst Palace were involved in a goalless draw with Everton. which side will manage to get the 3 points here? I honestly think that this game could be a little more tricky to call than what most people think. On the one hand, Palace on their day can give anyone a run for their money, and they do have Wilfried Zaha back in their ranks. But having said that, the Blades will have the home advantage. They will have their supporters who will be very noisy and hostile, and that could help them, and you can tell that they will fight for everything this season just from their performance last week against Bournemouth. My head is saying Palace will win, my gut is saying it will be a draw. I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw for this game. And that wraps up the Premier League preview show for Game 2 of the new 2019-2020 Premier League season. Guys, if you have any thoughts, comments or predictions of your own on any of the round's fixtures, I'd love to read them down in the comments section below. Otherwise, hit that like button on the way out if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things will be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch, the Football Observer. This has been another Premier League preview show, and I will see and speak with you all again soon in another video.